Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Crownsmen Show. I'm your host, Jared Downey. Joining me today is Gowdy Molina.
Good morning. I
Good.
love how you say joining me today. It's pretty much every day.
What do you mean? We only do 2 shows a week.
I know, but I'm always here.
Um, on the show today, we are featuring Vega. Vega is a German-based company, and we're going to be featuring Mark McDowell. He is the managing director for Vega Instruments Canada. But we're going to be talking a little bit about their factory, about their products. They're in they provide measurement services and sensors across multiple industries. So we're going to focus. There's going to be a little bit of mining talk. But we're going to touch on some of the other industries as well. So it's going to be a fun show today. But first, Gowdy, who are our sponsors?
Fabulous. Okay. So first up, we have Savanaugh Equipment. Savanaugh Equipment supplies new and used mining equipment around the world, from placer to underground to ore processing plants. They have gold concentrating tables, trommels, and mineral jigs in stock now to take advantage of the high gold prices. You can visit them at savanaughEquipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day. Next up, we have Power Zone Equipment. When you need a specialized team of world class engineers for your oil and gas pipelines, dewatering, or any fluid handling needs, you want to visit powerzone.com. In addition to their inventory of rebuilt pumps, motors, engines, they also have an amazing team to design and engineer your systems no matter the challenge, no matter the location. Get in the zone with PowerZone. Visit them at powerzone.com. Also, mentioning, please contact us if you would like to be part of the show as a guest or have someone you'd like to refer to be a guest, whether it's the Crownsmen Show or Crownsmen Energy, Mining Now. Please contact us, info@crownsmen.com. You can also visit our website, crownsmen.com. Fabulous.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much today.
Today.
Mark, welcome to the show. It's good to have you on. We're going to cover a lot of ground today.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Jared.
I guess where I should probably start is with clarifying my wonderful intro of who Vega is. So I think I probably should let you say who they are. They're essentially a sensor manufacturer, but serving across multiple industries. Am I close?
Yeah, you're quite close. We tend to specialize in level and pressure instrumentation, and if there's an industry out there, there's a great chance that there's a Vega sensor in it somewhere. So everything from municipal to mining, oil and gas, food and beverage, pharmaceutical. It's pretty all encompassing.
You said that if you've been to one of these sites, you've probably seen the sensors, but there's been a bit of a shift in the distribution of Vega products. Is that right? So a lot of times people don't realize that they're actually looking at a Vega product.
Sure. Yeah. Quite often you'll walk through a plant and you'll see those bright yellow instruments, and those are ours. But how you come to procure those in the past has been through an exclusive rep distributorship that we've had in Canada. We still maintain those relationships with those distributors, but we are also have a direct presence in Canada. Then the goal of that was really just to allow our customer to choose the buying experience that they wanted to have. So if you've got a great relationship with your existing distributor and things are great there, that's awesome. We'll continue to support you and the instrument that you have and the distributor. If you're a person that likes to deal with the factory direct, then we're here for that as well. And we don't mind. It's really the customer that drives that decision.
So was that specific to Canada, or was that did that distribution model change on a global scale? Because I think you're in, I mean, 80 countries or something like that. So, what was that a global shift?
Um, it was a shift primarily in the Americas. So
Okay.
Canada, USA, Mexico, and South America. The rest of the globe has tended to be more of a direct type model, but they maintain relationships with distributors and things as well.
I want to kind of take a step back from we didn't get into the technology in that, but I mean, I'm always looking for the next vacation spot, and I think I found one where where their factory is located. It's just an absolutely beautiful area. So, could you take us into that sort of a tour, if you will, of where Vega is actually producing their products, and just a little bit of the background of where they are, because it is an absolutely beautiful area.
Sure, it's a really unique company. Our headquarters globally is in Schiltach, Germany. We have a production center there as well. Chiltoc's not really a very large place. So the Grieshaber family, which owns Vega, we're still privately held and family owned, has a really strong presence in the community. And, quite frankly, they're the major employer there. And it's not uncommon to see fathers, daughters, sons all working together at Vega. In the Americas, our production facility is in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we've been able to recreate a similar culture and atmosphere there. We are in the process of moving to a larger facility in Cincinnati, just outside of Cincinnati, and that's going to triple our production capabilities. Um, Everything is really, really local. We don't outsource our parts. We control our entire supply chain. So these aren't just assembly places. Germany prints our own circuit boards and things like that. So it's a really interesting factory. If you ever get a chance to get over to Germany, Jared, we'll be sure to set you up with a tour.
Oh, I'm planning on it. Yeah, no, it's just it's not if, it's just when. And but it is interesting. And then you work more on the sales side of it, so you're that sort of that facing side of the company. Um, is there? I mean, it, what kind of company is it? I mean, they're not the only sensor technology out there, but yet I mean, their presence is just massive, and their chain is huge, and their customer base, and all these things. What, from your perspective, what is giving them that edge? Is it the technology, or is there something sort of more in the secret sauce?
Certainly, the technology is important. It's a must-have. I mean, you can't meet your customers' need if your technology is not evolving. We have a great R&D department that sort of takes care of that side of it. But for us here in Canada, being customer facing, it's about being responsive. It's about being knowledgeable. It's about really making sure that our customers taken care of and walk through a difficult measurement application every step of the way. Um, the on the technology side of things, when you only specialize in level and pressure, you need to be really really good at it. So a lot of our competitors have the full basket of goods. They're into flow measurement, and Coriolis meters, et cetera, et cetera. But 100% of our R&D and 100% of our knowledge is focused on the level and pressure market. So we're able to do things technically that others can't. Being privately held and having a longer term approach to our business cycles allows us to really focus on the customer, focus on the end user, and make the right decisions for those relationships.
For you working for a large private company that's based in Germany, what is that relationship like, being the managing director of Canada? Obviously, there's an expectations, and how is sort of that what sort of, I guess, pressure would it be to have, especially when there's that pivot from a distributor model to now you're selling direct? I mean, that's a major shift, for to to sort of go into new markets, but you're still supporting your distributors. Is it quite interactive with the top, or sort of what sort of pressure do you face, on a day-to-day basis?
There is surprisingly little pressure in the traditional sense. The Germany and Cincinnati tends to take an autonomous approach and allow the local sales channels, their subsidiaries like Vega Canada, to operate in their markets. So it's with
Mm.
that understanding that they're Canadian, they live in Canada, they best understand that market. So really, there's just a lot of support that kind of comes from my board from Germany. There's a lot of support that comes from our factory in Cincinnati. And you're absolutely right. Managing this transition, we're going to an exclusive representative model to being direct with distributors. It is quite challenging, and I think you know absolutely we've stubbed our toe on it a couple of times, but we really maintain an idea of just being transparent, open, and honest, and having the difficult conversations when they need to be had. And while it's not always pleasant, we find that it's very efficient. And just having plain, simple, honest talk with each other, we've been able to, address our customer needs, but also, work well with our existing distributor channel.
There's something unique about the company. It's one of those things that you kind of go in, and you start doing the research. It just where I looked up where that was in the Black Forest. I think is this essentially giant forest that's around the area where they are, and that's just this beautiful. I mean, I was reading some things online. It's almost like this magical place to some people, and they go there to like it got into areas I didn't really understand actually, but it was just very interesting. And I just and then speaking to you and your team, and it's almost like there's that it is a large company, but there's still this sense of you can almost sense the small community that it comes from, and it's quite unique actually. It really, really is. Um, but now going up onto the big scale, let's talk about your top industries because you are a major player in the sensor technology in mining, oil and gas. I mean, pharmaceutical. It goes on and on. So where are sort of the top? Let's start with Canada actually. Where would the top industries be for Vega?
So traditionally in the past, it's been oil and gas, and it's been, by quite a margin, quite a long shot. We're seeing quite a step up in our water and wastewater
Okay.
markets in Ontario. So they would be, it would be oil and gas followed by water and wastewater, and probably a little bit neck and neck with mining and pulp and paper. So those are, generally the large extractive type industries here in Canada are our big industries, our big customers.
So when you're selling direct to something like wastewater, I would assume that there'd be a certain element of townships and communities, and it'd be that sort of thing, right? So are you how what is that even that process? Because there's companies putting together, these entire plants. So in that sense, it would be the company coming to you if they're doing municipal work or things like that. Then the whoever's designing and building that plant, then they're the contact there for something like that. Would that be the setup?
Yeah, I'm from out west myself and don't have a lot of experience in the municipal world, so it's
Oh,
primarily oil and gas. But hey, it's this last year and a half has been a tremendous learning curve getting into municipal. I had no idea the amount of effort and time that it took to get registered with these municipalities under what they call
mhm.
lobbyist rules, and getting on their approved vendors list. So we've been successful there. So to answer your question, it has to happen on a number of levels, kind of all at the same time. You have to be working with the municipality so that they know who you are and that you are on their spec sheet. Um, Ideally, you have somebody there that likes the technology, has been familiar with the technology, becomes a champion of that. But at the same time, those projects go out to bid with the larger contractors and consultants and integrators, and so we have to have relationships with all of those. And in the year since we've been direct in Canada in the Greater Toronto area, we've built some really great relationships with the municipalities and some key integrators as well.
So your background is primarily in the oil and gas side, though
It
that's sort of where you specialize?
it is, yes.
Where can you paint a little bit of a picture of where the sensors are going in? And I know that's a broad question. You can pick just a few because we don't have that kind of time. But
Sure.
where would what are some standout areas that you're generally going into for the oil and gas? Can you sort of paint a picture of where the sensors are set up in those systems?
Sure. We have a sector of products, radiometric or nuclear based measurement, and that one's been really key for us in Alberta. And we've been able to do density measurements on tailings lines, and also look for phase separation in treaters. And the other thing that we have is on the level side is a radiometric that again at really high temperatures, or like things like reactors and things like that, we can do a measurement that's external to the vessel, so there's no contact with the process. So in Alberta, typically we're quite well known for the radiometric, and you'll find those on treaters and separators and those types of things.
When you shift over, I want to get into a moment. I want to get into some of the technology, but sort of to lead up to that, what I saw on the website, pharmaceutical is one of the streams, and of course that caught my eye, considering it is
Sure.
2021. We're doing the interview. Um,
Yeah.
so is do the sensors shift when you get into that sort of that pharmaceutical streams, or is it just a different way of facilitating? Does it change from industry to industry, or is the sensor and then how they use it varies?
Yeah, the technology is essentially the same. So the measurement challenges across all the industries and level are quite similar. You've got frothing, you've got agitation, you've got small vessels. So whether it's oil and an oil and gas facility in northern Alberta or a pharma facility here in the GTA. Uh, Very different processes, but from the physics standpoint, trying to make that measurement is very similar. What we uh, what we wind up seeing is the difference in certifications or what they require. So obviously, in the pharma industry, polished steel and having all your hygienic certifications is very important. And in the oil and gas industry, of course, it needs to be robust and rugged. So the technology is the same across the board, but the features and options on each of the instruments are kind of tailored to be fit for purpose for that industry.
Right. Going into the technology, is it how much does it evolve? Like even going right down to the size of the sensor, the shape of them, and their does it has it over 20 years has it drastically changed? Over 5 years has it drastically changed? What do you see? What Of course you're getting the product. You're not there on the R&D side and the manufacturing and everything like that. But what do you see from even a technical standpoint of how they evolve?
Um, Really, the evolution is just it's continually trying to take something that's complex and make it more simple. So in the beginning, radars were very power hungry, very large, very expensive. Vega managed, we were the first to come out with the two-wire free space radar. So that was a big development quite some time ago. More recently, the introduction of 80 gigahertz, the operating frequency of the free space radar, is something that I would say has been the next step change in the technology. I think prior to that was sort of a little additional features and benefits that were programmed into the instrument, but the that 80 gigahertz was a real step change and has enabled these instruments to almost be plug and play because of the robustness of the signal that we're able to get.
I saw a video. You have these Vega has these neat videos. They're in German, but then they do the English over top of it. Which more companies should do that. If you're watching this show, get get your videos translated so people in other languages can take in the information. It's such a simple thing because they did these really nice videos, and they just had the English over top, so I actually knew what was going on. And these and there was a lot of this like dirt buildup and things like that, which is obviously a major issue, especially when you get into mining and oil and gas. Maybe mining more so than anything. Wastewater, that would be a major factor. So could you explain a little bit about how they're countering that, or how the technology isn't affected by I mean, everything's down to cobwebs on some of the older sensors can affect it.
Sure. If you think about taking a level measurement and you have an instrument that's emitting a microwave and it's a transfer of energy out that's looking for a change in dielectric that reflects some of that energy back. So we know it's going out at the speed of light. Divide that by half. That's your distance from the horn, and you infer the level from that.
Mm,
Anything that can interrupt that signal going out and back is going to have an effect on your measurement. So, like you said, things is like cobwebs or dirt or buildup. So, what the 80 gigahertz has allowed us to do is we have a much larger return signal to work with than we'd had in the past. So, yes, we're still seeing that build up where we are seeing those obstructions, but we've got more signal to work with so we can accurately lock on the actual level and stay with it instead of losing it in the noise. We have also another feature that's kind of going on in the instrument at the same time because the years of history and experience that we have all goes into that instrument. So how the instrument deals with the signal is the people behind it, because when you go in and you set up an instrument and you select all the options, it's not just for fun. You're actually changing how the instrument thinks or how the instrument processes the signal. So for instance, build up, it's not, mistakenly people sometimes think, well, it's 80 gigahertz, you're just shooting through that material that's built up. You're not, you're seeing it there. You now have enough energy to get through it and back,
uh,
which lets you get a signal. But the instrument now is smart enough to know that, hey, this thing is sitting right on my face. It's not moving, it's not doing anything. That is not level, that's buildup. So it doesn't process it as a level signal. It keeps
right.
going out and looking for the level. And we call that a sensitivity time constant that we use.
And so I want to jump. I find that quite interesting. I probably can't come up with more technical questions than I just asked. So I'm going to move on.
That's good because you've exhausted my ability right there. Yeah.
Um, but I do want to stand. I do want to have a little bit understanding of radiometrics.
Sure.
And it's kind of a fascinating thing that you sort of exposed me to in the sense that different countries have different regulations on it. They have different concerns about it. Some have it sort of figured out, so it's much easier. And I just wanted to walk it through it because it was a whole side of things of the sensor technology that I hadn't even wasn't wasn't on my radar. So can you just talk about the radiometric technology a little bit, and then how sort of those regulations work within from country to country?
Sure. Radiometric for us in Canada, actually, within the global sphere of Vega, uh, Northern Alberta is one of the largest concentrations of Vega radiometric instruments in the globe for Vega. So it's a really important measurement in heavy industry. Um, here in Canada and North America, we tend to be more accepting of a radiometric or nuclear source on site. These are hard measurements, and over time, people have come to accept that really radiometrics the only way to get those measurements. When we go to market in other countries, though, uh, they often are quite apprehensive. I was going to use the word fearful, but
Mhm.
I think apprehensive is a better word about radiometric activity. So they quite often try to strive to make the measurement with the smallest source size possible. Uh, which is fine, but you can run into a situation there where you don't quite get the measurement resolution that you
Mm.
need. So here in Alberta, especially when we're dealing with tailings, and guys really want to monitor that change in density. You don't want to miss that and plug up your pipe, and it back feeds into how they're treating all the tailings as well. So there's energy savings there. They really want to be able to detect the smallest change in density possible in the fastest manner possible to prevent those pluggings of the pipe. So to do that, we need to use a bit larger source size. It gives us more what we call counts per second. And if you think of counts per second, it's a little bit like a radio dial. If you have three stations on your radio dial and none of those small little marks between it, your resolution there is 3 points. Anything that falls in between it is missed. When you get to a better radio that has all the small little gradations between the bigger channels, you can get into that finer resolution. So if you think of that as like a density, again, instead of having those big jumps between the density measurements, you can get to getting the smallest little changes possible. That's what having knowledge about the source and about the radiometric, and having a lot of applications engineers on staff, we're able to really kind of dial that measurement in on those types of applications.
I know you're saying that casually about the radio. I never understood what that whole dial system was. All those little marks on there. When I was a kid, I'd look and I'd go, I wonder what that is. That like, no, it can't be time. I remember being a little kid and looking at my dad's old radio and trying to figure out what that was all about. I could have just asked. He probably knew. Um, um, So what you end up with then is in a country, let's say a country that's more, and apprehensive is probably a perfect word, that a country that's more apprehensive as opposed to, let's say, you're in Canada, Alberta, where they have a good understanding of it, and it's very clear what they're able to do with it. You could be measuring the exact same thing in another country that's a little more apprehensive, and you're going to have to sort of make those sacrifices depending on what they're comfortable with essentially, and you'll actually lose some of your accuracy in essence, not because of the technology, but because of the requirements. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You know, it's you can't just have a straight up accuracy statement with a radiometric measurement, because what we're doing is we're analyzing these counts per second. So on a lot of plants, you'll see this doesn't the radiometric doesn't even fall under the instrumentation shop. It falls under the analytical guys. And with any analysis, the larger sample size you have, the better accuracy that you get. And for us, that sample size is counts per second.
Mm.
So when you see an accuracy statement in radiometric, you really want to be looking at with what confidence. So are you within one standard deviation? Or are you within two standard deviations? So when we look at these, quite often our customers want us to be within two standard deviations, so 95% certainty. Uh, Conversely, can you make the measurement with the smaller source size? Absolutely. But now you're introducing a measurement uncertainty in there, and you're only doing it with a confidence of about 67%.
The the one thing I'm wondering though, when you're saying that, are you when you're outlining that, is it someone like me that happens to have a job at a regulating body, or is it someone who understands the technology and that you can actually sort of go back and forth and find the right spot with them? Or is it someone that goes, this piece of paper says I can only do this, and so that's what you have to work with? Like, what is that? Or is it different for everything?
Yeah, pretty much every scenario you just described, we encounter. But I think you know, definitely different plant sites have their own rules and regulations surrounding, what sources and source activity they're allowing on site. But I think probably the biggest hurdle that we see is when people hear radiometric or nuclear, they assume that all the technologies are the same.
Mm,
So, our competitors, they definitely have a radiometric offering as well. And while it's true, the measurement principle is the same. The approach to how it's gathered and the mechanics behind it and the philosophy behind it, or the methodology rather behind it, are quite different from competitor to competitor to us. And quite frankly, there's some configurations of our competitors that work in applications that just aren't really very good for us. But
mm.
it's, again, getting back to us managing those relationships. We're quite frank with our customer when we encounter these types of applications that we're just not the best fit for. So,
It's, yeah, I would it'd be so interesting to understand. I wanna just jump back to something. That the company for you in your professional career, have you ever worked for a company like you said, they're making all the tools. They're manufacturing, they're putting everything together, and it's a private company, and they're distributing out. Now they're selling direct. For you, when you're going into a marketplace and you're doing that pivot from a distributor model to a direct and things like that, that must play a major role. Have you ever had that experience where you sort of have that much, I mean, for lack of a better word, just confidence in a product, to be able to go into a market and you know exactly how they're putting this together? And just to add to that, I'm one of these people. When I buy something, I start researching it, and you find out where it's getting sourced from and put together, and you're just like, "Oh, this is the same this is the same junk that's over there. It's just put in a different box."
yeah.
And once you know that, you can't unsee it. And Vega is very much not that scenario. So it must give you have you had, first off, going back to my first question, have you had that experience where you have a company that has that sort of, I guess, grounding in their actual product before?
No, actually, I haven't, and it presented a real hurdle for me when I first came on with Vega about 8 years ago. My background is I'm a journeyman instrument technician, and I kind of worked my way through that. And when I came on board at Vega, I'd obviously worked for some of our competitors, and we were led to believe that those measurements on low dielectric oil and gas, you can't make those with a free space radar. So I brought that baggage with me to Vega and was a little bit maybe I'll say cocky about it and say,
Mm,
yeah, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. And after about a year or so, I started seeing the measurements that we were actually able to make with a free space radar and not having to use a guided wave radar or a cable. And it quickly became a convert. So we have a lot of confidence in our Pulse 64 80 gigahertz instrument that you can put it in some really harsh conditions and still get a good measurement. So that again, it's just that, like you said, controlling your entire supply chain, the research and development, and being singularly focused on a particular measurement. Just the amount of knowledge that you're able to accumulate quickly and
mm.
integrate into the instrument, and just really become experts in that one particular field. It's phenomenal what our R&D folks and what our technicians can do with these instruments.
How much of that is coming from the front line? So in your case, is there an expectation to send a lot of information back as you're navigating into these different situations and different scenarios?
Absolutely, all the time. It's constant, and a really, kind of a big source of that knowledge for us is our service technicians globally. So, as they encounter new and novel type of applications that are difficult and not easy to do, that information gets relayed back to our R&D folks, back to our factory, and they have a look at it and go, aha, we can, if we do this, we have a solution for that. So that's ongoing, it's constant, it's we're always developing and looking for the next the next advancement or the next way to make those measurements easier or simpler or more robust.
Do you when doing that shift, is it I just want to talk a little bit of the logistics about it. We're sort of in the tail end of this interview, so it's a little bit more open ended. And I just there are going to be other people that are completely different sectors, and they're through a distribution model, or they're thinking of switching into a distribution model. And I mean on the ground, not even from the main company's perspective, but just from yours. What kind of shift is that with, now you're getting sales staff that are going direct, now you're going to events, and it must be actually a real big shift, especially for a company that's not small. There you gotta shift the whole thing over and the whole focus. And what was that actually like doing that? Because that only happened recently. So you came on through the at the distribution level. Now within the last few years, you're switching to this. So what has that been like, just even from a professional standpoint?
Um, it's been interesting. I would say the largest challenge, and I think something that Vega does very well as a company, is maintaining the trust and respecting the trust of our partners. So,
Mm,
we had a distribution channel in place prior to us becoming direct. It was, there was an education period that kind of we went through and sat down with our distributors and were upfront about the direction that we were taking and kind of laying that out, but we also had to take the time to listen to their concerns and rightfully so, it's their business and their livelihoods, and we're a big part of that. So it was really a series of consultations and back and forth to where we had an understanding of each other, and you know they became accepting of that. Hey, Vega is actually going to be here in Canada working direct. But we also realize there's certain things that we can do that provide a lot of benefits to them as well, such as brand awareness and helping out with marketing and being more accessible and turning quotes around faster. So far we've been able to do it without any you know major blowouts, and we've maintained great relationships. But key to that, I think, has just been speaking simply and honestly and being transparent. And when we do encounter challenges, we sit down with our distributors and in some cases even our end users, and we try to sort out which channel is the best for that customer.
mm.
So really, I liken it a little bit like an iPhone in a sense, in that Mac or Apple doesn't tell you what buying experience you have to have with an iPhone. It's
Right.
really driven by you. So if you're the techie guy that likes the Apple Store and you like the Genius Bar and that's your thing, head on in and get your phone. If you're a guy that just, hey, Best Buy online, send it to me, no problem. Or if you want to
Yeah.
buy it from your phone service provider, then do it. So that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish here is, we're really going to let the customer decide their buying decision. It's not a one size fits all. Certainly, some of our larger customers enjoy working with a distributor because it's a one stop shop for them. Then we've got other customers that are really specific into level measurements and don't have a lot of the other types of measurements, and they enjoy working with us directly. So
Yeah. One thing I was wondering too, I mean, you're filling a need, so it's a little different than an iPhone, but a brand is a brand. I mean, people, if you can see something and go, okay, I trust that that's going to be good, and now does it work for me? You sort of jump that first hurdle right off the bat. So is there some benefit though, if you're a distributor like an iPhone? It's actually a good example of that. If you're a service provider and you're selling that new iPhone, it attracts a lot of people because they do sell direct. Is there a little bit of that where, because now you're selling more direct and that brand is even building bigger, that there's actually more demand, even from the distribution level? Does that happen, or have you seen it?
absolutely, we've certainly seen it in Eastern Canada. Western Canada is a little bit of a challenge for me to get a bearing on because of the everything that's happening with the oil and gas
Yeah.
industry right now. And our focus was primarily in Eastern Canada to begin with in the first year, so we haven't really put a big effort in Western Canada yet. We're just starting with that now. But absolutely, people see the brand, they recognize it, and then they ask their distributor about it, and so it's a pull for the distributor. They
Mm.
they definitely see more business with it, and the distributors that work well with us, and we're very easy to do business with. We never, I wouldn't say never. That's a very rarely do we make them look bad in front of their customers, but if we do, we make it right. But we're hyper responsive, really fast deliveries. About 80% of our products available for complete production in about 3 to 5 days. So
Wow.
we really have industry leading stuff like that that helps the distributor build their name as well with the customer, because hey, they're tied to it as well. They've got some reputation on the line as well when they recommend a Vega product to one of their customers.
This is little bit of a funny question, and I hope I can ask it the way I want. It's when you going back to the sort of there's this, it's such a large scale, but there's like a small town feel, something.
Mhm.
I can't really actually explain it with what I've seen from the company. But even the way that they do their videos, they're very high quality, but there's almost a pleasantness to the videos that they do. Whereas some, it's like they're really trying to be, you see some kind of corporate type videos, and they're trying to show how powerful they are. And I hate those videos so much. I can't even explain how much I hate them because it's so obviously contrived. Um,
Yeah.
but it's sort of that feel. When you go back, when you start working with them, I'm assuming that you have spent some time going back to the Germany and the headquarters and
Mhm.
that does that does that affect you? Do you find yourself on a professional level, sort of taking in their approach and their sort of culture that they're bringing to the table? Essentially, when you started 8 years ago, have you seen yourself evolve? Not just naturally, but from being involved in that sort of that feel that they bring.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I experienced it about 8 years ago, and we see it quite often with our new hires as well. So, the people that come in from other organizations tend to bring their experiences with them, and quite often they've worked at companies that in their mission statements say they value employee contributions, and they want constant input and things like that. But I think the truth is we've all done it in our career somewhere where we stepped out of our comfort zone, put our hand up, and said
Mhm.
something, and immediately went, "Oh boy, I probably shouldn't have said that," and it's been a bit career limiting, or caused you some anxiety. My own experience with that was it took me probably about I'll say around a year, maybe a little bit longer at Vega before I've really kind of felt it out, and felt reassured that what I'm okay to speak what's on my mind here. I'm okay to contribute. Um, and once I started doing that, that's when the power of our culture really starts to kind of hit you, because problems and barriers and issues, they just break down. Everybody, yeah, my sales director Scott Rollman at the time, said, "Look, any criticism you get, understand that it comes from a place of caring.
Mm.
It's coming because we want to help you. So it's not a retribution. It's not a knock on you. It's that I care enough to provide you that feedback to help you be better." And when people adopt that thought process, and they see it and live it and breathe it and eventually become to believe in it, now we have many individuals contributing at their highest form with their highest input, with all the knowledge that they bring. I'll say to our new hires, look, we pay you for what you bring to the table. We pay you for what's up here. If I put a muzzle on you,
Mm.
we're not getting what we paid for. So if you can imagine, you have an organization, and globally, where everybody feels comfortable bringing those types of suggestions or ideas or improvements to the table, to the highest levels within Vega, which we're a very, very flat organization, by the way. It just You've got this constant kind of push of innovation, this constant kind of push of improvement, and it never stops. And it's incremental in most cases. It's a step change in some cases, but we get that because we have everybody continually thinking and contributing and not being afraid to.
It's exciting to hear it. I mean, I've been a member of teams. I know what you're talking about. That sort of that you put something out there or you do something, you go, oh, that did not work out. And when you were talking about that, it reminded me of last year we went to watch a Canucks practice, and I distinctly remember because I'd never seen people at that level just practicing, working on their skills, and the top 5 players on the team, they were practicing and they were barking commands at each other, not barking, that's actually not the right word, but they'd say, "Oh, go here and do this." And there wasn't even a hint of hesitation. It was just because you could tell the goal, and it wasn't surprising me when they made that little playoff run because I saw in the practice, those top players, there was just no there wasn't even a hint of, "Oh, why are you telling me to do that? You're a forward and you're telling me to move over here." There wasn't that. And I when you were saying that, it reminded me of that practice. It just that that whole culture of, if I'm telling you something, but of course you got to tell it in a certain way. That's why I said
Yeah.
barking is not the right word, but
Yeah.
when I'm saying something, it's because 'cause I'm trying to get us to do better, and there's that response there. I and I think it must show confidence as a company that this company really does have a good product. They don't need to hide behind anything.
Mhm.
They do have good distribution models. They do have a good leadership team. It really reflects to me, it reflects confidence that a company can actually have that open dialogue.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and I think confidence is a good word. We're not the biggest instrumentation company out there by a stretch, but we're very confident in our abilities. We're very confident in our people, and much like I regrettably call the Canucks a high performance team, but
I was
you know.
purposely setting you up for that, by the way. I figured you weren't a Canucks fan, so
But any sort of high performance team, they have that ability to communicate open and honestly.
Mhm.
But they also have that ability to forgive, and
Yeah,
I paint a pretty picture here on this. It's not always pretty. I mean, it's always civilized, but it does get hard and it does get tough, and you do wind up at these impasses, both internally and externally. Like, how do we get through this? And it gets a little rugged sometimes, but we have that confidence to keep contributing, and afterwards kind of look at each other and say, wow, that was tough. We're good. Yeah, we're good. Okay, let's keep going. So yeah, that ability to forgive each other comes from a place of strength as well.
it's funny that the word forgive has never been on I've never heard that word used on this show, not once, and it is a word that should be part of companies' dialogue. It's actually a very powerful word because you're absolutely right. When you're in the heat of things, stuff happens, and there is that there's one thing to say sorry, and you see all these things, like, written on the wall about being positive and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
that's being positive is when things are going well. And when you're in the trenches, sometimes you have to be able to look and say, okay, maybe that person didn't even apologize, but I need to move past it because we've got a goal here. And they were under pressure and all that sort of thing. And I think, of course, it's the tail end of the interview, so you don't know if you don't know if everybody's still watching. But for people that do, I think it's a very powerful thing to bring into a workplace is that ability that you never hear, the word to actually forgive people because you spend a lot of time with the people you work with. It's a very you're right there, sometimes more than with your own family at times. So it's a
Yeah.
powerful word to have within a company.
Yeah, too often I see, obviously we want entrepreneurial people. We want people that take chances and feel comfortable talking about taking risks, but that's the only side of it that we talk about.
Mm,
And without the forgiveness side, without the hey, you made a mistake, it's all good side of things, this other it's sort of an empty mantra almost. Like, just
yeah.
go take chances. Oh, that didn't work out well. You're really in for it now.
Yeah,
You really inhibit people's confidence again to go out and be entrepreneurial, to be creative, to put things forward. So
yeah,
that forgive part, it's the other side of the equation. You can't really, I think, have one without the other.
yeah, and then that direct line of communication so that people actually know where they stand and, they know how they can be better, they know where the opportunities are, and I mean, it's power. I mean, it's insanely powerful, and it is, yeah, like you said, it's a conversation. It doesn't look as good on a wall. That really is all that it is. It just doesn't look
Yeah.
as good on a wall. So, but yet it's the other side that is so important. And if a company is feeding into that, you end up with Vega, 80 countries,
Yeah.
and being able to have distribution and direct and sensors all over the world and in all different markets. That is part of the end result. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Mark, thank you for joining the show. I wish I could ask more technical questions on the product, but it was sort of like a little mini education here. So I hope I get you back on or feature Vega again, and sort of maybe look at some of these particular scenarios where the sensors are in and how it gets, how the things are getting set up and the sacrifices, those 3 levels that you talked about. I would like to unpack it a little bit more. I'd probably need to be walked through it a bit before I could actually do that properly. But it's a fascinating sector that you serve.
Oh, well, thank you. And yeah, we'd love the opportunity to get a little bit more technical, but I enjoyed today's discussion. It was a refreshing change from just speaking about technology and then the widget side of things, and speaking quite a bit more to the why and the how Vega exists and forms relationships with their customers. So I enjoyed that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Okay. Gowdy,
Yes.
that was man, we've been having some fun interviews lately.
We have, yes.
2021 is, and I'm saying this as I feel like if someone's watching and their business is struggling, I feel bad. 2021 has been very good to us. It has been very good to us. I'm
It
very,
has,
very
yeah.
thankful. We
So
have
far,
just,
yes.
well, people that want to talk. We
Yeah.
have companies that are open. I remember in the beginning there was a lot of checks and balances, and maybe people are starting to trust. They know that I'm not going to ask anything too crazy.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
that
that's
was the
what it is.
bigger thing. It's afraid of jumping on and not knowing,
Yeah.
what your agenda is. It's like, oh, we want to
Eh,
know your secrets. We
y-
don't.
yep, it's a hurdle.
Oh, I know there was some discussion off before joining the show, of
Yeah.
course. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
no, thanks a lot, Mark. We really do appreciate it. Gowdy, where can people watch, follow, comment, and recommend guests? We've been having some great people that are connecting,
Yeah,
and putting guests on the show, even companies like they're doing consulting work for and they're recommending. It's just so much fun.
absolutely.
Where can people follow, like, comment, or insult?
Everything.
Direct communication.
Yeah. I mean, we can always do better, right? Definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got 2 episodes a week on there. You can contact us through LinkedIn or Facebook. Just
Mhm.
follow us at Crownsman P. Also, if you want to contact us directly to be a guest or recommend someone to be a guest, email us info@crownsman.com or check out our website crownsman.com. Yeah, I think that's kind of
Good to go.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We love doing the show. It just seems to be getting more and more fun as we learn about more and more companies. It's just amazing. Thank you for your support, because without you watching, we wouldn't be doing it. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. And we will see you on the next episode of The Crownsmen Show.